Want to come back at midnight? We'll be back at midnight.
An award-winning journalist, a broadcaster, an author, a top individual in the journalism spectrum is covering the case with Judge Craig DeThomasis and What the Hales. Over the past couple months, Megan Fox, an award-winning journalist who actually knows what journalism is, in comparison to another lesser-known journalist, has been covering the story with Craig DeThomasis and What the Hales on PJ Media. Now, we're going to share this link with you to her article in the pinned comments so you can check it out afterwards as well. But with her approval, we're going to go ahead and cover this story. She says, What the Hales? Florida judge attacks free speech of YouTubers and journalists. And this is probably the main point that I've wanted people to understand from the very beginning of this case. Lynette and Crook became the sideshow of this case as this judge, Craig DeThomasis, began to attack freedom of speech, the right of the press. And it starts with YouTuber What the Hales, right? Who loves to debunk lies. But here's the effects of it, or the consequences of it. If this continues on, if this is actually allowed in the court systems, this sets a precedent or the beginning of attacking freedom of speech everywhere. It starts with a YouTuber, then it can go on to more YouTubers, then it goes on to the journalists, then it goes on to TV and every other medium. With all of us understanding that YouTube is the largest medium of news in our planet, to use Judge Craig DeThomasis terminology, in the world today. And we appreciate Megan's conservatism. We appreciate Megan's aspect of protecting freedom of speech. We appreciate her as a professional. And not only that, I want to...
So no baby talk, no goo-goo?
There is no goo-goo, boo-hoo, choo-choo, anything along those lines.
Oh, okay.
But not only that, she's just an incredible human being. Mm-hmm. And so all of those other accolades come out of her being an incredible human being. And so she's a mom, she's a husband, she's an author, and the list goes on and on and on. And so let's see what she has to say. On February 26, 2024, she released this article at 10:56 a.m. And it says, Jeremy and George Hales. Now, we all understand that I use George's middle name to protect her identity on the internet because there are creeps and stalkers. Case in point, they bought property across the street from us. So for all of the court documents and for all the court hearings, if you've heard George's first name, you're probably thinking, who's that? It's George. And I'm going to continue to use George's middle name to protect her identity from all of those creeps, especially with the understanding that this judge has taken away not only my First Amendment right, but my Second Amendment right to protect us as well. And so Jeremy and George Hales have had a very large YouTube channel with over 500,000 subscribers called What the Hales. Now, believe it or not, What the Hales is actually one of the largest YouTube channels in the top, not 1% of all YouTube channels, but 0.5% of all YouTube channels. We're not actually that large when you compare us to large, huge channels like the Paul Brothers or Dude Perfect, who we bought their storage unit in Texas, or Mr. Beast, who does incredible things all around the planet as well. But in terms of the totality, to use one of DeThomas's words, What the Hales is kind of a big channel, even though we still feel grassroots and small. And so we are very proud to share that as of today, what we are most interested in, and while subscribers do mean something, but what we are most interested in is views. And today, with our views to date, I'm pulling it up right now. To date, lifetime on the channel, we are at 321 million views. We are coming close on to 500 million views, something that I never thought was even possible for What the Hales on YouTube. But yet, here we are. The channel
Are
focuses...
any of those views like top 10 views Otter Creek by chance? Or
Okay.
Bad Neighbors?
All right. So there are those that say, you know what? Jeremy only covers this story. Others are only covering this story because it gets them the most views possible on YouTube.
Let's debunk that right now.
We can debunk that because we can show you our top views. And our top views right here, money found in a safe, 4.7 million. And I can't see what George can see right now.
Right now, it's safe videos, storage unit videos, cashing in coins,
storage unit,
coin pushers,
storage unit, coin pusher, storage unit,
no
storage
bad
unit,
neighbors.
storage unit, found money in a safe, bought a rug dealer storage unit. There is not.
I don't
This
see
is the
one
top
video of Otter
content.
Creek.
There's not one video of Otter Creek. If we were videoing Otter Creek, Town Hall, Lynette, Crook for views, well, we screwed that business plan up because what gets us the most views is what we do best. And Megan touches base on that as well. She says the channel's focus is mainly on abandoned storage units and selling the contents for profit. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that we love to do. It's the treasure hunt. It's the thrill. It's the finding. There are many people who spend millions of dollars to go dig in the ground to find millions of dollars in gold. We can spend thousands and find tens of thousands in gold and silver and jewelry and things along those lines. But we don't do it for the money. We do it so that we can actually give back to people and make an impact in our communities. And so there's obviously been an impact in the community in Otter Creek, which is in Levy County, Florida, and now within the court system as well. So Megan goes on to say the Hales family became so successful at it that they began a I can never say that word.
Philanthropic.
We began to give, okay? Philanthropic.
Paying it forward.
George can't say Massachusetts, and this is a word I've
Charity
never...
work.
Okay, that's, you know what?
I think
that's
everyone
best.
knows what charity is.
That we began charity work. There are some words I just can't say. I'm not going to cover it up. You can say Jeremy is unintelligent.
It's a tongue twister.
He's ignorant. And yeah, I'll agree with you on a lot of things. I am. But there are just some words I can't say. And it was an effort to give back those around them, sometimes buying abandoned storage units to return the contents to the owner. And so that is where it all began, with understanding that there are those individuals who have lost their entire life in a storage unit and it's gone. Now, I relate that to me going through a horrific divorce and me saying to my ex-wife, just take everything, I'll rebuild my life. And thinking that she would at least give me my baby pictures, she would at least give me my childhood, even Christmas tree ornaments. The answer is no, I have nothing. And going through that pain myself, I don't want to see other people go through that pain. So we began to go to storage unit auctions, and people were there in tears and saying, I'm losing my life. And we would go, God's blessed us. Please allow us to be a blessing to you as well. We want to make sure that we can get your life and get it back to you. But it's gone well beyond that. So from storage units, it's gone into helping restore eyesight for viewers and fans. It's gone into helping orphans in Egypt. It's gone into making sure kids can go to Christian camp and making sure the Christian camp has the resources they need to make sure those kids have the best time possible.
There's microwaves.
It's gone into making sure that the LARC, Levy County Arc Association, has funds that they need. Making sure that the people of Cleveland, when we bought a storage unit, that over $2.5 million of rugs and money was found in microwaves. We took that bad situation and we gave all of those microwaves to the people in need in downtown Cleveland.
Christmas in the Creek.
It's gone into Christmas in the Creek, making sure kids have the best Christmas possible. We've done many other things that you've never seen on the channel for our communities. One of the things I can think of is we helped feed individuals overseas by helping purchase full animals and cows, and then things along those lines. So it's grown, and I don't think it's anywhere near what I still want it to be. I want it to be something much bigger than it already is, and I believe that is still down the way, but we'll get there. And it says, Megan goes on to say, the Hales family is well loved by their audience and their community. At least they were until they bought property in Levy County, Florida. Boy, did Otter Creek change everything. Now, just so we're all on the same page, we purchased property in 2020 because, number one, when I met George, we both talked about long-term goals. When you're middle-aged dating, there's no need to waste time. You just come out of the gate and go, look, this is what I'm looking for. And I told her straight up front, this is what I'm looking for. These are my goals for my life. And one of the things she says, well, yeah, I want to do Florida as well. Well, when all of a sudden 2020 and the world shuts down, we went, well, this is going to speed things up. And literally looking at each other going,
my cancer sped it up as well.
Why are we already there? Why are we hesitating? And I think that's an issue for a lot of people in life. They go, I want, but some kind of fear, some kind of thought holds them back from doing what they want to do and living their best life. And we kind of just had to snap out of it and go, we need to make this move now. We need to move forward. And we came down to Florida and we looked at multiple properties, all of them in Cedar Key, except for the one that is here in Otter Creek. We wanted to be in Cedar Key, but there was no cell reception. Therefore, the realtor begged to actually bring me to this property and said, you will love it. I promise you will love it. And I said, no, George already showed it to me online. I don't like it. But she was right. I got on the property, all the diversity of the actual property, from the creeks to the woods to the ponds to the gators, the actual alligators on the property. I just fell in love.
The biggest thing was
instantly.
the cell tower.
And now we have a cell tower, which just in a couple years, the way the lease ends, I will own the cell tower. And all of the companies, AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, Sprint, they will pay me directly to have their signals off of that cell tower. And so cell tower was huge in the aspect of what we do online and our business, but the property sold itself. The cell tower was the bonus that we actually had signal. And the reason why we landed here is because we wanted to be in the middle of the major cities for storage unit auctions. Tallahassee, Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa, and boom, here's Cedar Key and Otter Creek. We're less than 2 hours away. It's a phenomenal business plan. It's a business plan that actually has been more profitable than we ever imagined.
Oh my goodness.
And so while our thought process was this will be beneficial, it'll be profitable, we'll be able to get to where we want to go, find great storage units, it actually has blown our minds how great it has been. And so we did make a very good decision. Although you can't decide who your town council members are going to be or who's going to buy property next to you. So Megan goes on to write, what happened after that, as the Hales say, involves being stalked and harassed by neighbors at Pew Pew Point. That would be John Crook and Lynette. And John Crook has not only gone Pew Pew Point to me, Crook has done that to other individuals in Otter Creek as well. And I also feel as if Lynette hasn't only stalked me, she has stalked other individuals as well, as we've heard testimony directly from her family members who will be testifying against her in court. So at the same time, she says they defamed with posted signs all over the town alleging heinous crimes against children and more. Now, I think most people understand what she's referring to if you're a fan of What the Hales. Lynette and Crook posted signs all over Otter Creek on Route 19/98, 24, around town, that stated that I was an Ohio rapist. I know you understand where I'm going with that. And that I particularly rapped their daughter, which at the time would have been 3 years old. And yet not a single call was made to the sheriff's station. Not a single report was made to anybody. But these signs were posted everywhere. And because of the court proceedings and Lynette running in to continue to file bogus motions, we now had handwriting samples to compare. We have hired the nation's #1 forensic handwriting expert who has confirmed with 100% accuracy that Lynette wrote half of these signs. We are still looking for the individual who wrote the other half. And we have that narrowed down to a handful of people. And you're probably thinking it's Crook. It's not Crook. We have plenty of handwriting
Unfortunately, it's
samples.
not.
We would love it if we knew it was Crook, and we had that against Crook as well. But it's not Crook. But we do have it narrowed down to a handful of other people. And we have clearly stated if that individual comes forward and testifies against Lynette, we will relieve them of all legal consequences and responsibility. Because frankly, we believe that they're a victim of her manipulation and deception as well. Now, what's going to happen if that person doesn't come forward is Lynette is going to be deposed, she is going to be in court, and she is going to reveal who the other person is. They constantly throw people under the bus. Now, if that person doesn't come forward, we have the grounds to go after that person as well. The same way we'll be going after Victoria Munsell. The same way we'll be going after Marla Hughes. The same way there are other individuals involved in this. But let's keep going on here. Defamed them with posting signs all over the town alleging heinous crimes against children and more. And when Jeremy filed for a protective order against his female neighbor, the state of Florida wouldn't give him one. So Jeremy filed in his home state of Ohio, where the judge took the matter seriously and immediately granted the protective order. So the process that we went in May of 2023 is we went to lawyer Stan Griffiths, who actually represented us against the town of Otter Creek as well, as they denied any records that we FOIA'd. And so we went to Stan as well and said, listen, we have this major issue with these individuals. He sent a cease and desist that they were to stop immediately, which they completely and totally ignored. As a matter of fact, they heightened their stalking and harassment activity. Stan told us that there has to be 2 documented committed crimes against us for us to actually, at the 3rd time, to get a civil protection order, or what's called an injunction in Florida. Unless you are actually family. So if you're family, you can get one immediately, which begs the question, how in the world did Judge DeThomasis actually bring this case before him, as he denied it, from our understanding, 4, 5 maybe even times? And we are not family. We are not related by any stretch of the imagination. And our lawyers have confirmed in Florida as well, yes, has to be multiple offenses documented, and then you can file for an injunction. Okay, so, well, maybe the aspect of it is you can get an injunction. I suppose you can file an injunction at any time in the courts, and they'll just immediately deny it because you don't meet the statute requirements. So, yeah, you could file anytime you want, and they'll deny it, as Lynette was denied time and time and time and time again. So they were sent a cease and desist. They did not stop. And then
Have we ever shared that letter?
The cease and desist letter? I don't know if we have or not.
Maybe for another video.
Another day. But the neighbor problem didn't go away. The neighbor then filed a protective order against Jeremy. You understand this is retaliatory, okay? And which Judge Craig DeThomasis temporarily granted. Now, Judge Craig DeThomasis actually denied it multiple times. Even as we went into the court hearings, if we back up a little bit, we actually filed for civil protection orders against Lynette and Crook in Ohio, which were granted. So we have permanent civil protection orders against Lynette and Crook based out of Ohio, which are enforceable by law in every single state, every province, everything that the U.S. has to deal with, okay? By law, federal law, and you have Florida state law, which then the Levy County Sheriff stated they would not enforce illegally, which now holds them in a tremendous amount of legal liability. So Lynette then attempts to try and get a civil protection order in Florida, and she's denied, and denied, and denied, and denied. But then Craig DeThomasis gives her a hearing. So during the first hearing, she is told there is no order, there is no evidence. During the second hearing, I believe it was, well, we couldn't even get to the second hearing because Lynette runs to the courthouse, her words, that she runs to the courthouse, not ours. And it's interesting that she uses the words runs because she says she's disabled. and she can't do things, but she's using the word running to the courthouse constantly. She lies, files a motion, supplemental information, and states that my attorney, Mark Feather, attempted to bribe her to make this all go away, which is a habitual pathological lie. My attorney never attempted to bribe her at all. And so now Mark Feather is a witness in this case and not the attorney, which then I had to hire Randy Shockett.
This all happened 2 days before the second hearing.
So because of that supplemental information, Craig DeThomasis gave a temporary order, not based on what I did, based on her stating that Mark Feather tried to bribe her. So there is a temporary order on me based on nothing that I have done. This is the insanity of it. There is nothing that I have done that warrants an injunction or a protective order in the state of Florida. It's all based on her saying, okay, his fans are contacting and threatening me. Mark Feather said that he was trying to bribe me. It's all lies. And there's been no defense yet given in the court. Megan goes on to write that the injunction against Jeremy included an overbroad restriction of prior restraint on his free speech, ordering him not to talk about his neighbor on his YouTube channel, which, if you understand the First Amendment, that's illegal. He cannot hold me back from that at all. Now, he may be God in his courtroom, but that's between those four walls, that ceiling and that floor, that's the only place he's God. Outside of that courtroom, he can't legally keep me from talking about somebody or saying their name. It's protected speech. Okay, so it goes on to say, ordering him not to talk about his neighbor on his YouTube channel. If anyone, and this is what he did in this temporary injunction, which, to be clear, that temporary injunction is still in effect to this day. And by the way, temporary is defined by an end date. There is no end date. It's pretty horrible in regards to this judge. Ordering him not to talk about his neighbor on YouTube. And if anyone uses his neighbor's name on his channel or causes his neighbor to be contacted, the judge says Jeremy can go to jail. Now, you have to understand, this obviously put the fear of, well, this put fear in me, for sure. Number one, fear of not receiving a fair trial by this judge. Number two, this judge overstepping his legal boundaries. I mean, he literally is undercutting what is the foundational amendment, the first one, freedom of speech. It's protected, constitutionally protected speech. And not only did he slap it on me, anyone else associated with me. So with 320 plus million views, those people are all now associated with me. If you view, you're associated. So now if you talk
including
about
the
Lionel,
haters.
especially the haters, because the haters are going to go, oh my goodness. By the way, 95% of the people will always love you in your life. 5% are going to hate you no matter what. And so often what we do is we give all the attention to the haters. The haters are always going to hate. Who cares about their hate? But in this situation, and I always tell everybody on YouTube, and I always tell George, focus on the 95 that love you. They'll love you even more. Don't give the haters any attention. But in this particular situation, the haters can now take his order and his decree and go, oh, all right, if we contact Lynette, if we talk about Lynette, if we post about Lynette on his social media, now he can go to jail. We could get Jeremy in jail. Do you understand how ridiculous, number one, this order is, how dangerous it is, and how illegal it is? He can't keep me from exercising my First Amendment right, nor can he keep the rest of the planet. It's insanity. And if he can do this to a small but large YouTube channel, what's going to happen to the rest of the press, to media overall in the United States? This puts this journalist, meaning Megan Fox, in an interesting position, because if I reach out to the neighbor for her side of the story, a judge can jail Jeremy. Now, I want to be clear. Megan asked me beforehand, is it okay if I reach out to Lynette or Crook? I went, no, please, no, please. That would break the order that he put on me. Regardless of what the order is, illegal, right? I have to fight that illegality in the higher court system. And so it's still there. And even though it's illegal, DeThomasis, if Megan reaches out, then Lynette goes and writes another supplemental. And then DeThomasis can go, yeah, all right, Jeremy's in jail because of this. Do you understand how he completely and totally undermined and attacked the First Amendment, freedom of speech, and the right of press, freedom of press? Because Megan, as a journalist, should be able to contact Lynette for her side of the story. But if she does, I go to jail. It's fundamentally attacking constitutional rights. In essence, a judge in Florida is restricting the right of the press to get to the heart of the story through threats of removing liberty of the subject of the story. So in other words, if the press truly wanted to, they could sue and press charges against Craig DeThomasis for taking away their legal rights as well. So not only has he taken mine, he's taken the planet's. And you're just sitting there in shock as it's happening in court. I am overwhelmed in shock going, I cannot believe this. It's overwhelming shock. You're in awe to even think about it. Okay, so if we keep going on here in the story, which remember, we are going to pin that in the comments. We want to make sure that Megan gets her credit that's due, and we do want to encourage you to go read the entire article as well. And so, regardless of the matters of facts between the neighbors, and you see where Megan just said, regardless of the matters of facts between the neighbors, one of the reasons why I want you to actually read the article for yourself is because don't take my word for it. Be a journalist like Megan is a journalist and go read it for yourself. Find the facts for yourself. This is extremely important when you're digging into a story. The real issue has become Judge Craig DeThomasis, who treats his courtroom like a star chamber. He has repeatedly chastised and berated Jeremy and his attorneys. And this has gone on and on. Mark Feather, your co-counsel in 15 minutes. But we all recall what Judge Craig DeThomasis said he could do, right?
I think we resolved 5 cases in an hour and a half, maybe 6, I don't know. Sometimes I resolve 10 in less than an hour.
He has refused to turn over public hearing recordings, claiming that they are private, can't be disseminated. He has refused to recuse himself 2 times and is now facing a 3rd motion to recuse. So we're all on the same page. There was a 3rd motion and a right of prohibition, or a writ of prohibition, and to date, the appellate courts have not made a ruling on whether he will be removed from this case yet or not. One of the worst things the judge has done to Jeremy and his girlfriend is to restrict Jeremy's movements on his own property. And so, you understand, I have a legal right to all access to my property. And some of the access, if George just pans the camera over there, way up there, about a half a mile up there, is North Otter Creek Avenue. And this is all virgin woods and land up there. It's very thick with trees, with brush, with palmetto bushes. The only way to access it is through the road, the main public road, which the judge can't keep me off of, and yet he has. I can't even access all my property anymore. Okay, without hearing the facts of the case, which he hasn't, he's only heard Lynette ramble on and on and on. It has been months since the neighbor filed for the protection order, and no evidentiary hearing has been held. Jeremy can't drive on his public road because it's the adult neighbor's property, which I own majority of the road frontage. This is the wild thing. I have now, it's 75 acres with all the different plots of land that I've purchased in Otter Creek. She owns 1.66. I own majority of the road frontage on North Otter Creek Avenue. She has 1.66 acres. And a judge is telling me I can't drive on my own public road for the public to access my private property. Okay, and Jeremy cannot drive on his public road because it abuts the neighbor's property, and he must stay 500 feet away from her property at all times. Further, he cannot use a large portion of his own front yard because of the injunction. Keep in mind that George and I already had civil protection orders against Lynette and Crook, and the Ohio judge did the right thing. The Ohio judge said they must stay away from us 500 feet at all times on all public, private roads, all public, private buildings, all public, private places, except when we're on our own respected properties 10 feet away. In other words, they can use the road and drive past my properties, which they have to because my property is all around their property. And I can use the road. But yet this Florida judge wants to come in and shake things up and go, Jeremy can't use his own road, when an Ohio judge has already made the restrictions that were working just fine. Okay, what else? Well, it goes on to say, worse, his Second Amendment rights have been removed with no evidentiary hearing to decide if he's actually a threat. Now, the real threat is I've been stalked. The real threat is the neighbors that stalked me have actually pointed their firearms at me. That's a threat. And not only that, I receive death threats on a daily basis being a public figure online. And while some of them are just from crazy, weird people, others are real threats, such as the stalkers pointing a pew-pew at me. And now I'm not allowed to carry or have a pew-pew anywhere around me to protect myself. Oh, but don't worry, I've got mace. I'm sure that mace is going to protect me when somebody's pointing a pew-pew at me, right? Meanwhile, he says he's been threatened by the neighbor and her associates with all manner of bodily harm. Particularly, the neighbor always, Crook, talks about shoving things up my back end and George's back end. The man is literally obsessed with the back door. Okay, and he's also prohibited from hiring security due to the injunction. He cannot be around anyone with firearms. That is a major issue for us, as we've had multiple huge events, such as Half Mil Time to Grill, which we had both uniformed, ununiformed, armed security for our protection. And what most people don't understand, there was an emergency evacuation plan in place for both George and myself and for all the other YouTubers that were there as well. Now, we don't talk about that security that's in place for the protection of our own lives because we want the emphasis to be on the fun and the fellowship. But there's always an evacuation and an emergency plan. Christmas in the Creek, we had armed and unarmed security yet again. And now we can't even do these activities anymore because we fear for our own lives because of the threats that we receive on a daily basis being right across the street from us. Larry Foreman, the DUI plus guy, a lawyer with a YouTube channel, and I went over the recent motion to discuss the judge on a stream yesterday. And Megan is referring to her actual YouTube channel, which I'm going to put a link for her article and for her channel in the pinned comments so you can look at both of these, okay? And Foreman has a recap of the events leading up to the situation in that video below. And this will be an important and interesting case to watch. So you can see in her article, she actually puts a link to that video. And I'll link it, again, in the pinned comments. But she asked this question: can a judge show aggression and hostility toward a respondent in his court because the respondent is a YouTuber and the judge doesn't like public attention and still stay on the case? The law says no. But Craig DeThomasis 3 times so far has said, yeah, I'm staying. So Craig DeThomasis thinks he's above the law. Now, this is a huge issue in our judicial systems when we vote these judges in, which he was not voted in, he was appointed in because another judge stepped down, there was an emergency, and he was appointed. As a matter of fact, he lost the election to become a judge. The people didn't want him. And I can clearly tell you, the people still don't want him.
He made a YouTube video about it.
So far, he hasn't. Or will he follow it? So far, he hasn't. And it doesn't look like he will with suddenly reform. Jeremy's evidentiary hearing is finally scheduled for March 1st, which we all know now that never did happen because we filed the writ of prohibition after he filed the third motion to dismiss him to recuse himself. But DeThomasis has put restrictions on his witnesses who don't appear to be on the plaintiff's witness list, which raises serious questions about how the trial can possibly be called fair. The judge has also forced the removal of one of Jeremy's lawyers due to the judge's naked hostility towards, she said naked, hostility towards the lawyer, which is written in black and white all over his court orders, and it very much so is. It is. There is no doubt to anybody who has seen or heard any of these trials that DeThomasis hates Mark Feather. And here's the crazy thing. The rest of this community loves Mark Feather. Like, this man is highly respected. This man is a man that people want on their side. This man is not only represented me in court, he's now a friend and a brother in Christ. And I'm thrilled to know him and have gotten to know him. And Megan goes on to say it's one of the worst cases of black robititis. I think that's how you would say it. That I've seen in years. DeThomasis truly believes he is the law. Do you remember the Adam Sandler movie? Which one is it? I think it's Grown Ups 2. And Shaq and the other dude are the cops in the area. And then the one dude goes, "I am the law!" Pew, pew, pew.
No, but I remember someone saying, "I am Levy County."
Okay, I remember that too. But every time I think of DeThomasis, I think of that scene in the Adam Sandler movie, and I'm pretty sure it's Grown Ups too, when he goes, "I am the law!" Pew, pew, pew. And I think he's jumping off of the roof into the pool. No, Shaq jumped off the roof. Anyways, I always have movie scenes in my head. It's a thing. So at any rate, even though his job is only to listen and interpret the law, you understand that's what a judge's job is to do, to listen and then interpret, to listen and interpret. Yet this judge has represented as legal counsel for Lynette, breaking the law, and then has broken the law based on the restrictions he's placed on me. Instead, DeThomasis spends inordinate amounts of time in every hearing listening to the sound of his own voice, complaining about YouTube, Jeremy's attorneys, anything else he can think of to avoid hearing the evidence. Now, there are some that are probably going to say, well, that's the same thing Jeremy does. He spends all this time listening to his own voice. Well, there's a big difference. On YouTube, you have to speak. Dead air means a dead video. Same on TV. Dead air means a dead program or episode. Do you know when you have a sports program, NFL, NBA, you've got the Major League Baseball, there's a commentator on purpose. Why? Because dead air means a dead program. Not only that, there's a color commentator. Why? Because you can't hold all that communication the entire episode. And so YouTube is an appropriate place to hear yourself speak. Even though, I'll admit it, I don't like hearing myself speak. I don't go back and watch my own videos. I don't like editing and listening to myself. It's not a comfortable thing for a lot of YouTubers. But when you're in a courtroom, your job is to listen. I mean, really, that's it. You're going to listen, take all the evidence, and then with the law, dissect it and say, this is what the law says about that.
Don the Con should come and tell the judge to just listen.
That's true. Don the Con did tell me I should shut up and just listen.
Just listen.
And, we'll see. Maybe Don the Con will be in court. Maybe we'll get him there. So Megan goes on to say, when Foreman began covering the story, his law firm received a hostile phone call, which some close to the story believe it could be connected to the court system in Levy County. As we've come to find out, there's a tremendous amount of corruption within the court system and Levy County as a whole. The individual said he's planning on filing a bar complaint against Foreman for covering this case. And for that, I mean, there's this part of me that I feel responsible because there are other people, lawyers and journalists such as Megan, who are digging and diving into this case, and they're seeing the reality of this, And there are consequences. Remember, 95% of the people are going to love you. They'll always love you. Focus on them. 5% are going to hate you. Let them hate. That's all they're ever going to be. They're going to be miserable people. But these people are bringing negative consequences to the good people that are doing good about this. And so a bar complaint that is unwarranted on Larry based on a hater, I feel responsible for that because Larry started to cover this. And Megan, I'm sure, has got her own fair share of hate because she started to cover this. I mean, we know because the Jokalist loves to say hateful things about Megan. And Megan's an incredible individual. The Jokalist is an incredible fool. So it hurts on a personal level knowing that we've brought this criticism and scrutiny and ridiculous consequences to them for covering our story. But at the same time, we're very, very thankful for them. The individual said that he's planning on filing a bar complaint against Foreman for covering this case. And retaliation against media trying to cover a public hearing creates a chilling effect on free speech. What is going on in this court? The American public should want to know, no matter who's telling this truth in the case. And that's the reality. It doesn't matter if I'm telling the truth. It doesn't matter if Lynette's telling the truth. The issue is this now. Remember that the truth of the case is the sideshow. The Constitution demands, this is the main show, that an accused person has the right to face his accuser in public. This means in an open, free from censorship, no gag orders, and unconstitutional assaults on free speech. And all this judge has done is assaulted my free speech. As a matter of fact, even after this, I've been physically assaulted by the son of the court's victim's advocate who's whispering in this judge's ear the entire time. The amount of insanity and corruption that has happened is mind-numbing. Judge DeThomasis might not like What the Hales or Jeremy's speech, but he must, like the rest of us, tolerate it and restrain himself from favoring one side over the other. A judge is supposed to avoid, even when there's an appearance of bias, which he is beyond showed his bias, which DeThomasis has failed at spectacularly. He is clearly not fit to adjudicate this case and should not only recuse himself, but should be removed from the bench completely. To catch up on all of this case, you can watch the interview with What the Hales here, and she gives a link. And really, to catch up on the case, you can watch everything in our Otter Creek playlist. The insanity of what's happened with this judge is out of control. But here's the crazy part about it. We're not the only ones. As a matter of fact, this past week, somebody went in before him with a petition. Remember, I'm the respondent. There's a petitioner that went before him, and they had glasses, like George has glasses, and the glasses were set down. And Judge DeThomasis actually called out, we're trying to get this video evidence right now, started calling out this petitioner and said, "Are you filming me?" Why is he so concerned about being filmed? Because his biases is showing?